Welcome back, everyone, to the Think About It podcast. It's brought to you, as always, by Forward HR Consulting. And today we're going to be talking about something that I think is really at the core of what makes us tick as humans, and that is self-actualization.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that?
I have. The pyramid, right? Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We often picture it as a pyramid.
Yeah.
And it really is helpful in kind of understanding how we prioritize things.
Yeah.
Right? It starts with those basic survival needs.
Yeah.
Like food, shelter, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it moves all the way up through things like love, self-esteem, and a sense of accomplishment.
Right. And you got to have those lower levels kind of in order before you can really start attending to those higher ones.
Absolutely.
Like you're not going to be thinking about self-esteem if you are starving and don't have shelter, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
It provides a good framework for understanding our motivations.
Yes, totally. And that's what I think is so compelling about it, right?
Yeah. Because right at the very top, like you mentioned, sits this idea of self-actualization.
Yes.
Which is essentially that drive that we have to become the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? It's about tapping into creativity, realizing our full potential, and living in a way that just feels truly authentic.
Yeah, like you're on the right path.
Right.
You're doing what you are meant to do.
Yeah, it's that internal nudge to really grow and become everything that we're capable of.
Right. It's not just those basic needs being met. It's about really becoming who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it really does speak to, I think, that inherent human desire for progress and development.
Right. We want to move forward.
We want to move forward. We want to be better.
Absolutely. And it suggests that we're not just driven by those, like you said, those base level needs,
Right.
but by this intrinsic motivation to grow.
Yes.
Like we're designed to go on a journey of self-discovery.
Totally.
Yeah.
So now, while those ideas have been super influential in psychology, obviously, like any field, psychology is constantly refining its understanding.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm really excited to talk about the work of Scott Barry Kaufman.
Okay.
He is a psychologist at Barnard College, Columbia University.
Okay.
And he has been taking this really fresh, research-backed look at this whole concept of self-actualization.
Well, you got to have research to back it up these days, right? Like the early psychology, there were some insightful observations,
Right.
but not a ton of data.
Totally.
But he's bridging that gap.
Exactly.
Exactly with like modern methods.
And I think, especially now, in a world that is so often emphasizing just achievements.
Yes.
And really, individual kind of gains and things like that, that this revisiting of this concept of realizing our broader human potential feels really, really important.
It's a good counter-narrative.
Yes.
To all that self-interest.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he even said himself, it's like a renewed understanding of self-actualization
Okay.
can really offer a counter-narrative to the increasing division and self-interest that we see.
It's a way to refocus on personal growth that's also connected to something bigger. Yeah.
So it's not just about me, but about me in relation to everything else.
Exactly.
And how I can contribute, right?
Yeah.
So, and part of his work was really developing a way to actually measure this. Right.
Right, because how do you know if you're self-actualized?
Right.
If you can't measure it.
Exactly.
So what he did was he used modern statistical techniques to develop an assessment tool.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. So basically he was able to identify characteristics that tend to be more pronounced in people who exhibit higher levels of self-actualization.
Okay.
And it was published, his research, in the Journal of Humanistic Psychology.
Oh, wow.
And he pinpointed 10 core characteristics.
10. Okay, so that's interesting because I
Yeah.
know some of the earlier frameworks included a lot more, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he actually started with 17 characteristics.
Okay.
And then through his research, he kind of whittled it down to 10.
Okay.
So he surveyed a large, diverse group of people, and some of those 17 kind of overlapped or didn't really align with the others.
Interesting.
So he was able to come up with a set of 10 that was more focused and statistically supported.
Okay, so let's get into these 10.
Okay.
What are they? What are the things that he identified as being characteristic of someone who is moving toward or experiencing self-actualization?
Oh, okay. So the 10 are continued freshness of appreciation,
Go ahead.
acceptance,
Okay.
authenticity,
Okay.
equanimity,
Mm-hmm.
purpose,
Okay.
efficient perception of reality,
Okay.
humanitarianism,
Okay.
peak experiences,
Okay.
good moral intuition,
Okay.
and a creative spirit.
Wow. Okay, that's a really diverse set of qualities.
It is.
I mean, some, like you said, authenticity, purpose, those immediately resonate with that idea of being your true self.
Right.
And having direction.
Yeah.
But some of the others, like, I'm curious, like continued freshness of appreciation, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, that's a good one.
In everyday life?
Like, when was the last time you just stopped and really looked at something?
Mm.
Like, really looked at a leaf or the way the sunlight was coming through the window
Mm.
or even just like the sound of laughter, like really, really listen to it.
Yeah.
So it's about cultivating that ongoing sense of wonder and joy in the everyday, not taking things for granted.
Yeah.
And kind of living with this sense of awe.
Yeah, that's beautifully put.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. What about, so you said equanimity.
Yeah.
What is that?
Equanimity is like that feeling of inner peace. So imagine something difficult is happening at work or like a personal setback. Instead of getting totally overwhelmed by the emotions,
Right.
you are able to like notice them and process them.
Yeah.
But you're not totally taken over by them.
Right.
So you were able to kind of respond in a more thoughtful way,
Yeah.
not just like a knee-jerk reaction.
Right. Right. And what about efficient perception of reality? That's a really interesting one.
Yeah. So that's the capacity to see the world more clearly without being influenced by your biases or fears.
Right. Right.
So you're perceiving things more accurately
Yeah.
instead of through like your anxieties.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really looking at it like objectively, it
Yeah.
sounds like,
Yeah.
as much as you can, right?
Right.
Which is tough to do.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because it really does paint this picture of someone who's not only deeply self-aware
Yeah.
and driven from within,
Yeah.
but also super actively and perceptively engaged with the world around them.
Yeah, you have to have efficient perception of reality.
Totally, totally. And you mentioned that his research indicated that these 10 characteristics tend to occur together. Is that right?
Right. So statistically, they tend to cluster together.
Interesting.
So there's probably an underlying factor there that all these traits kind of feed into.
Okay, so it's not just like, oh, you have this one and you have this one, but it's like, oh, if you have this one, you probably have these other 9 too, to some degree.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm also curious about how this understanding of self-actualization connects with our like broader understanding of personality. Yeah. Did he find any links to like any established personality traits?
Yes. So people who scored higher on his self-actualization measure also tended to score higher on the big 5 personality traits.
Okay, and remind me, what are those?
So it's extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, openness to experience, and emotional stability.
Okay, got it.
So all of those were higher in the people that were more self-actualized.
Interesting. Is there anything else that kind of went along with that?
Yeah, so they also scored higher on a meta trait called stability,
okay,
which is the capacity for self-control and goal-directed behavior.
Got it.
So basically this alignment with all these frameworks that we already know about kind of gives validity to his approach.
It does. It really does. It makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
It's not just this isolated phenomenon.
It's really kind of interwoven with the fundamentals of who we are.
Yeah.
And how we interact with everyone and everything around us.
Absolutely.
So I know he also explored the relationship between self-actualization and our overall well-being.
Yeah.
Like, how did that play out in the research?
Well, like we said, he found that there was a strong positive correlation between all these characteristics and well-being. So people who were more self-actualized tended to have higher curiosity. More life satisfaction, higher self-acceptance, stronger sense of growth, and feeling more autonomous.
Like almost like it gives you more freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
To be who you are.
And it really reinforces the idea that striving towards self-actualization is linked to a more fulfilling life.
Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Good.
So it's kind of wild that, you know, we're seeing all of this contemporary research really supporting a lot of these ideas that initially emerged, you know, through just observation, and philosophical thought. And there wasn't a ton of research initially.
Right, exactly.
So it's good that it's coming full circle now.
Yeah, like really cool that now we're kind of like putting the science behind it.
We're validating it.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, they were right.
We're onto something.
We're onto something, exactly.
Yeah.
So now, a common concern that comes up when we talk about self-actualization is that it can sound, to some people, really individualistic.
Right.
Even maybe bordering on being self-absorbed.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how did his research address that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Maslow actually theorized that it's through becoming your most authentic self.
Okay.
That you're actually able to move beyond your own concerns.
Okay.
And develop more empathy and compassion.
Interesting.
For others.
Okay.
So it's not just about you.
Right.
It's about, like, you become more connected to humanity.
Got it.
And Kaufman's research supports this. So higher scores on the self-actualization scale were associated with feeling more interconnected.
Okay.
And a sense of oneness with the world.
Mm.
So it's fascinating because it's not like you lose your sense of self.
Right.
It's like you have a healthy sense of self, but you're also more connected to everyone else.
That's such a cool distinction.
It is.
It really shows that it's not about isolating yourself.
Yeah.
It's about achieving this level of inner integration
Yeah.
that actually helps you engage with the world in a more compassionate way.
And in a more expansive way.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
That's so cool. There was also this idea out there that self-actualization is kind of a rare thing,
Yeah.
and that maybe it's something that people only achieve later in life, as they get older.
Yeah.
Did his findings support that?
Not totally. So in his initial research,
Yep.
the scores on his scale kind of followed a normal distribution.
Interesting.
So it's not like this rare thing
Okay.
that only a few people have.
Got it.
It's kind of spread out throughout the population.
Interesting.
And he didn't find strong links with age, gender, or education
Okay.
in that initial study. But he has said that more recent data with larger samples
Okay.
shows that older age might be slightly associated
Okay.
with more self-actualization,
That's interesting.
but it's not a huge effect.
Right. So maybe it's just that as we get older,
Yeah.
we have more experiences and perspectives that maybe contribute.
Yeah, we have more time to reflect.
Exactly. I figured it all out.
So, I mean, ultimately, what would you say is the big takeaway
Hmm.
from Kaufman's work?
I think he gives us some real scientific validation
Okay.
for this idea of self-actualization.
Yeah.
He's identified and measured these 10 characteristics.
Yeah.
So he's moved it from being an abstract concept to something we can study and actually try to cultivate.
That's huge.
It is huge.
Yeah,
Right.
I love that. I mean, it really is remarkable.
Yeah.
And it gives us so much to think about in terms of, personal growth and purpose.
And even how we show up at work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that cultivating a continued sense of appreciation, embracing authenticity, finding purpose, all of that, like you said, nurturing that creative spirit, it's all super valuable stuff to reflect on.
It is.
I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to consider which of these characteristics resonate with you.
Yeah.
And then how can you bring those into your life?
Yes.
Yes.
More fully.
Yeah.
Love that. So for all of you listening, we encourage you to kind of, like we said, reflect on these 10 characteristics
Yeah.
and maybe identify those areas where you're like, oh, yeah, that's a strength for me.
Yeah.
Or, oh, maybe that's something I could develop a little bit more.
Right.
And to help you on that journey, we actually have a ton of resources and insights on all sorts of topics related to human behavior and personal development, and we encourage you to check it out on our website.
Yeah, it's www.forwardhrconsulting.com.
Definitely go check it out. You won't regret it.
It's a great resource.
It is. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time on Think About It.
Bye, everyone.